Welcome back to my channel for a bit of an exotic Hasselblad video. And what I want to do in this video is the following. I have here a very famous lens, and by the way is a super heavy lens. It's a Canon FD lens, 85mm, so perfect for portraits. And that's what I also want to show you in sample images later on. Widest open is an f1.2. It's an S.S.C lens. I come to it what that means. It's an aspherical lens. And I have also here on the table the corresponding adapter, which helps me to mount this on the Hasselblad X2D II. And of course, I have my beloved Hasselblad X2D II here and a tool I will use in the course of the video. And I want to show you how these type of lenses work. And most importantly, I will show you sample images from a recent shooting with Stephanie, which will reveal to you that this is Noctilux quality. For some, it might be even better than a Leica Noctilux lens because it delivers such beautiful images. The game plan for this video is the following. I want to explain to you that lens, and that will take us a few minutes because the reason why I said at the beginning it's a bit of an exotic video is that the way you operate these lenses is a bit exotic. Then we are going to mount it on the Hasselblad X2D II with that adapter from Novoflex here. And we'll gain a little bit of experience here live in the studio, how it is shooting it. And then, of course, I will walk you through sample images. And I can tell you already right now, the footage you can generate with this lens on a Hasselblad X2D II is absolutely fabulous. Let's kick this off. If you have not yet subscribed to my channel, please do so. Subscribe, hit the notification bell, support my work. Many thanks for that. All right, so Canon FD lenses. Let's have a look here. This is very heavy. I suggest I organize a scale. We put it on a scale and measure first its weight. So here's my scale. Let's take the lens, let's place it on that scale, and we end up at 763 gram, which would have been my rough estimate holding it in hand, somewhere between 700 and 800 gram. So quite heavy if we look at the size of this lens here, right? It doesn't look that big, but it's pretty heavy. And I think that is something you need to be aware if you shoot it on a Hasselblad X camera, of course. The Canon FD system is discontinued, of course. We had the Canon EF system and now we have the Canon RF system. But these lenses from a mechanical perspective, they are kind of ingenious in my personal humble opinion. And the FD system was a fully mechanical auto diaphragm system, which basically means that the aperture stays wide open for image composition and the camera then mechanically pushes a rear lever to stop down only during exposure. And I'm going to demonstrate this to you. There is no electronics. It's all springs and cams which do the work. And that is very interesting. So let me open this up and let me show you. And first of all, if you want to unscrew here, the lens cap, bad luck. It doesn't work in the normal way. You have here a so-called breech lock mount design. And that silver ring here rotates to lock the lens while the lens body itself stays stationary, minimizing wear and preserving precise optical alignment. So let me open this here. And if I do that, I actually find a position where I can remove this. Let me demonstrate this again. Now it's locked. That's the breech lock mount design. Now I rotate it to open and then magically the lens cap can be removed. Let me show you also what I mentioned just a moment ago, that the aperture stays always wide open for image composition. We have here a beautiful aperture ring. And that aperture ring, by the way, also has beautiful clicks. Listen to the sound. I hope you can hear that. Very nice, but no matter what I turn here in aperture ring, if you look inside, let's do this from this side. This might be easier for me to hold. If you look here, I'm turning the aperture ring, but it's always widest open at f1.2. And that's what I mean when I said at the beginning, the FD system is a fully mechanical auto diaphragm system. The aperture stays widest open the whole time you do image composition. Why is this meaningful and ingenious? Well, because if the aperture is widest open, you catch a lot of light, right? That's the ingenious feature the Canon FD system with these very heavy lenses was offering to the photographer. The lens I have here from the secondary market, I actually purchased it here in Switzerland, is in a very, very good condition. And you will see this also later in sample images. The glass is pretty clean. I don't see a lot of dust included in that lens, and it is an amazing lens in a very good condition. So here's the dilemma with this lens. If I mount it without thinking and this adapter to my Hasselblad X2D II, I cannot operate the aperture. Let me turn this again like this. And you see now I'm rotating the aperture ring. Listen to the clicks again. But the aperture is not moving. The aperture blades stay where they are and the lens stays widest open. So what can I do? Because I need to mount this on the adapter on the camera body, and I want to steer my aperture, of course. Well, I need to switch state on that lens. I need to switch from the auto diaphragm state into a manual diaphragm state where I actually can operate my aperture via that aperture ring here. And that is something I'm going to illustrate to you now. And for this, I need this tool. Okay, this will be a bit of a challenge for me to do this from behind the camera, but I will do my best to demonstrate the functions to you. And first of all, this breech lock here is locked the moment in time you rotated it to remove the lens cap. And I showed you that before, right? It's locked. And the aperture ring has no effect at all. It's not closing. Look here, I'm turning the aperture ring. You see this here, hopefully. See here, I'm turning it, but no effect. It stays widest open. Now here is like a little spring with a metal lever, and I can push this one, and then this silver ring here will no longer be locked. Have a look, I push this down and now I can rotate it. Watch that. And it also here is in a state where it comes to a stop, and now you see the aperture is stopped down. And what do we currently have on the aperture? We have it heavily stopped down here to an f11. Let's go here and open it widest to f1.2. And you see now the aperture is following my direction when I rotate the aperture ring. Let's go here and let's close it. You see, now it's working. But only in this state. If I go back into the lock state, it will snap in. And now it's locked, and now we are in the auto diaphragm mode, where only the camera will stop down the moment in time you take exposure, not before. If I want to unlock this again, I go to this little spring lever here, I push it down with my tool, and now I can manually set the lens into a manual mode where I can steer the aperture via the aperture ring. Have a look here. Now I can stop down. You see? Simple like that. And that's the state in which I need to mount this to the adapter and then to my Hasselblad X2D II. So I have full control over the aperture, which is what we are going to do next. Actually, I want to go one level deeper with this FD lens here, although it's not necessary because what I showed you is enough to shoot this lens successfully on the Novoflex adapter, which is then mounted on the Hasselblad X2D II. But in case some of you are interested in purchasing this lens and shooting it on different cameras and different adapters, there is one level deeper, which will help you to understand better what's going on here. And here's a different adapter. So this is an adapter which translates the FD mount on a lens to the GFX camera mount. And this adapter here is different. And let me quickly show you, because here you have a ring which you can turn. And you also have here a marker. So this says install, and this is the symbol of an aperture. And if you mount the lens on this adapter, and here, think about here, for instance, being a GFX 100 Mark II, then if you install it, you make sure it's aligned here with install. But if you want to operate the aperture, you switch from install to this setting here. And there is an important distinction in the way you shoot this lens on this adapter versus this adapter here. And I want to quickly show you that. So first of all, if we have the lens here, I'm now here Let me see. Where is my pin? So if I want to move that silver ring, I need to push in that pin here, which is basically a lock pin and has a spring, of course, underlying. Let's go here. Let's get this in. And now I can turn in the way I showed you before that silver ring. And now let's dial in a stop-down aperture. Let's say here we go to an aperture of f8. Let's go to f8. And besides this one here, this is moving in sync with the aperture ring. It's called the aperture signal lever. And if I rotate the aperture ring, you see how this is moving in sync. You see it here? It's moving in sync with the aperture ring. Let's go back to f8.0. Here we go. But there is an even bigger lever here. And that's, I would call it a stop-down lever. And you see now here, in the same way as I demonstrated before, if I turn the aperture and that aperture signal lever is moving in sync, the aperture blades are not moving. Nothing is happening. It's not really showing me that it is stopped down, which is based on this auto diaphragm system in the Canon FD world. But this here is a stop down lever or an aperture lever. And let me show you, if I push this, I can test whether it's stopping down to f8. You see that? If I go, for instance, to a wider open aperture f4, it will also give me that here. And now the aperture is wider open. It's an f4. You see that? And that is an important lever because on this adapter here, I only need to set the lens into manual mode so that I can steer with my aperture ring the aperture and I'm good to go. But on this adapter here, I actually need to put the lens in the auto state, like if I would mount it on a Canon FD camera, which is, I repeat myself, an auto diaphragm system. And how do I do that? Well, first of all, if I'm here and see I can stop down, and by the way, this is all useful to know for you. If you ever want to purchase an FD lens, make sure you play with it in the way I'm showing you now, so you see that all mechanical functions are fully available on the lens, because in the secondary market, you might find sometimes lenses which have faulty behavior. So here we can stop down. If I want to come to the mode where if I turn the aperture ring, again, see how this is moving in sync, and it's also moving the apertures like I needed on my Hasselblad X2D II and on that adapter here, I need to switch from auto mode, auto diaphragm mode, into manual override mode. And watch here, I can push this and then it locks in here, this bigger lever. And now you see the aperture stays where I set it up. And now I'm in this manual mode, which I need for my Hasselblad X2D II. But on the Fuji camera with this adapter here, I actually need to be in auto diaphragm mode. So I push this back, and then only if I turn it here for seeing where it will stop down to, this is the mode which I need to mount this on this adapter. So let me quickly mount this and show you how it works. And for this, we need on this adapter to go back into the install setting here. You see, it's now at install. And on the lens, I need to rotate this back into the state where I can mount this lens to an adapter or an FD camera. Hear the sound? Boom. And now we have to find here the red dot, which is here. Here we are already in the install setting, so we can mount this now here. Let's see. Always difficult behind the camera, but now it's here. And now I can turn this and basically get it firmly mounted on that adapter. And now what we see, let's look through from this side here. I'm still in a mode where if I turn the aperture ring, let me quickly do it here for you, nothing happens. But the adapter itself, this adapter here, in contrast to this adapter, has a setting where it switches into manual override mode. And that is that ring here. And this ring here was now in install mode. Let me go back here. We can't see it any longer, but I can rotate it. And here's install. Here is the setting on that ring where you saw this aperture symbols before. And now my aperture will work. Have a look here. You see? that is what I wanted to show here, because depending on the adapter, you will need to approach the problem of shooting this lens on a third-party camera, a modern digital camera like an X2D Mark II or Fuji GFX100 Mark II differently. If I'm in stall mode, I basically preserve the auto diaphragm mode of the lens. And if I turn now my aperture ring, nothing will happen here. But the adapter has now an ingenious mechanism when I rotate this to the aperture symbols, where I don't need to basically approach the lens from the rear side and use my tool here, where I can just rotate it and then it switches the lens into the manual override mode, where now I can actually turn my aperture ring and operate and steer my exposure and my depth of field, and it will work fine on the Fuji GFX100 Mark II. And I'm actually considering doing a video where I also show the results, how it is to shoot this lens on a Fuji GFX camera. Let's see if I really come to it and find the time. But I think that would nicely round up my report to you guys on the channel community about this fantastic FD lens. Let's now get the Novoflex adapter out of the box. And I personally think when I was shooting it, this is a beautiful adapter. It fits nicely to the FD 85mm lens, and it fits very nice from the finish to the Hasselblad X2D Mark II body, because it has kind of the same finish in matte black. And let's get here the cap removed. Let me do this quickly. And now here we need to get some orientation. There's a red dot here. That's for the FD mount. There's a red dot here. That's for the Hasselblad mount. And that red dot needs to sit at 12 o'clock on Hasselblad X cameras. Then it snaps in. Listen to the sound. Boom. Deal done. And now this sits firmly. And only if I push the lens release button for the lens mount on the camera, it will come off again. It sits actually solid like a rock. I know a lot of you guys had in the past written in comments to me that there is play between the lens from the X system and the X system camera. Not so here. This Novoflex adapter sits solid rock on the camera lens mount. Very nice. Now it's time to mount the FD lens on the Novoflex adapter. And let me show you first. You find here the red dot, and this red dot needs to be aligned with the red dot on the Novoflex adapter. And then we need this breech lock here to actually screw the lens firmly onto the adapter. So let's mount this here. Let's see. This fits. And now we can here rotate the silver ring, and it sits very, very firm on the X2D Mark II lens mount on the camera body. Perfect. I promised to come back on the acronym S.S.C in red letters here engraved on the lens, if you see this here. And this stands for Super Spectra Coating, which is a multi-layer coating that Canon introduced in the 1970s, I personally believe, to improve the behavior with reflections, you know, to improve the overall optical quality of the lenses. And that's what this S.S.C standing for. S.S.C lenses in the Canon FD universe, they are typically more expensive than lenses without this super spectra coating. I already explained and demonstrated to you the aperture ring, and also let you hear the clicks. And here we have a buttery smooth focusing ring. This is really cool. And the orange scale, if you look here, is in meter, and the white color scale is in feet. And you see the minimum focusing distance of this lens here is 1 meter. And then the focus ring has a very long travel way, which is perfect for super precise focusing up to infinity. And the hard stop here is exactly symmetrically in the middle, the center of the infinity symbol. So this is done in a very, very nice way. And by the way, if you remember what I said when we looked at the rear side of the lens, I told you that these FD lenses have two mechanical states. One is the auto mode. That's the standard mode if you mount that lens on a Canon FD camera. And then the aperture stays widest open for composing. And then the camera mechanically pushes a rear lever to stop down only during taking exposure. And then there is the manual state, and that manual preview state is when the aperture ring really directly controls the aperture. And that's where I left the lens before I mounted it. So let's have a look inside. So have a look again. I'm now using a torch to get light into the lens tube. And you see, I can stop down via the aperture ring and also open it to its widest setting by turning it. And that's very important if you want to shoot this type of lenses with an adapter on non-Canon FD cameras. You need to put the lens first into that manual state, get it out of the auto state. Otherwise, you will not be able to steer your exposure via the aperture ring. I've now switched on the camera with the lens. By the way, what do you think about that design? How does it look like to shoot this FD lens on the Hasselblad X2D II camera body? I think it looks a bit exotic. As well as the Novoflex adapter looks on the camera body, this lens is bulky and looks a bit overproportionate in my opinion. But that doesn't discount, of course, the footage you get out of this camera lens adapter combination. But drop me a comment what you think. Does it look good in your opinion? Or do you also agree with me that this looks a bit exotic and a little bit eye-catching if you shoot it out there in the field? I've put the camera into auto ISO mode. I don't want to bother about ISO here in my live demonstration. And the camera already detected that there is no X system lens mounted. It says here manual focus. And if I half press the shutter button, it will tell me that there is no lens detected. Watch, half pressing shutter button, no lens detected. Now, why is that? Because, as I indicated before, the Hasselblad X system is a leaf shutter system. That means the shutter mechanism sits in the Hasselblad XCD lenses. And there is no focal plane shutter in this camera body here. So the only way we can operate with an adapter these third-party lenses is via electronic shutter. So let's get into the menu. Let's go to exposure and let's activate electronic shutter. And now the moment in time I half press the shutter button, we will get a live view. Watch here. Here we go. Let's try to focus on Jennifer here. Let's see. Let's also crop in here. Let's magnify this and let's see if we get her sharp. And here we go. Look at that. That looks pretty interesting. I think here she is sharp, very precise focusing required here. And the lens is a bit soft when it is widest open. I'm currently at f1.2. Let's take a shot. And there she is, Jennifer in all her beauty. And I think this looks good. You will see this later whenever this lens is shut widest open. It gives you a very dreamy look. The moment in time you stop down by 1 or 2 full stops, you will get still a super dreamy look of Stephanie, my photo model, but you will get very crisp and sharp areas where I was placing the focus, namely on her face and her eyes. What I want to do next is showing you sample images from my shooting with Stephanie. And again, the long way this focus ring travels from minimum focusing distance all the way to infinity. You see how much I need to rotate that focus ring. That really helps for precise focusing because you can, in a very fine way, adjust the focus and get it sitting where you want it to sit. So let's have a look into these images, and what I personally think and feel is this is absolutely next level. And in my opinion, tops everything in terms of lenses I've ever shot in people photography on my Hasselblad X2D II. And I'm not the only one who is saying that, by the way. I have friends who are pro photographers who say on my medium format 100 megapixel sensors like in the X2D II or the GFX 100 Mark II, I categorically only shoot vintage lenses, and Canon FD lenses play a very prominent role here. So let's go to the first image. Let's have a look, and let's first realize we have here an absolutely perfect background bokeh. And this is shot widest open. And as I said, the lens can be a bit soft, but here, if we look where the focus was sitting, wow. Absolutely wow what I see here, because here it starts to become blurry already, but the eye is pinpoint sharp. And that is absolutely amazing in my opinion. I did shoot a couple of these type of images just to get familiar with operating the lens on the Hasselblad X2D II and testing how far it takes me. This is all shot widest open. Look at her eye. I mean, Stephanie has beautiful eyes anyway, with her greenish yellow color. and that dark ring around it. But this looks really good. And look at the reflections here. Absolutely fabulous what you see here. Background bokeh, the most pleasant you can imagine. Really, really good. Here, I don't know, here I probably changed a little bit of the coloring. This is a bit softer, I think. This is sharper. Look at that. Here I missed it a little bit. It's a fraction of miss here. Watch this. This is perfect in my opinion. If you look at the reflections in her eye, this is almost a perfect hit. Moving on to the next one, and look at that. How cool is that? I really like these images. Let's move on here. These are all shot widest open. Here is a shot from the side, and look at the eye. It's almost an unbelievable glow you get in her eye here in the way the light was falling into it. And then this very, very smooth transition from the sharp area here in the eye, that's the right-hand side eye, towards the left-hand side eye, which is already no longer in focus and blurry. A very, very soft transition. Look at her fingernails here. This is a rendering I've hardly seen in the last many years, and I'm excited having this Canon FD 85mm lens and being able to shoot it on the Hasselblad X2D Mark II. Here I was stopping down, and you see we still have a nice separation of Stephanie in the foreground from a blurry background, but we get more structure, more information in the background now when stopping down, and the level of sharpness you then get is incredible. Look at the texture of her skin. We have almost both eyes fully sharpened and focused. This one here is a bit soft, the left-hand side eye, but the right-hand side eye is perfect, and it looks really good. Here again, a shot from the side, stop down also. And look at that. Oh my gosh, look at this sharpness. This is amazing. I mean, I hope I didn't promise too much, but it is really a great lens on a great camera body. That's a very cute picture of Stephanie, I think. And if we crop in here by 100%, it's really sharp. Still stop down here. I think it was an f4 I was using here. Look at that. Very, very nice. And now both eyes are sharp and in focus. Look at her lips, her face, her nose, everything. It looks so good. And I think the three-dimensional pop you get in these images, even when stopped down, is amazing in my opinion. Then I was shooting 4 exposures outside. She was leaning on an SUV. That's, if I'm not mistaken, a G-Wagon. And I think we were lucky that the owner didn't catch us, because typically in Zurich, if you lean on a car which is not your own car, you get easily in trouble. But here it was nice to make these pictures. And by the way, I wanted to show you here, this is kind of cat eye background bokeh lights, what we see here in this image. And it's really nice. And look at that. Look at her face. This is just amazing, and how it is separated from the background here. I was here opening the aperture a bit wider again, so not stopping down to f4 or f5.6 or whatever it was. I don't have the information in the metadata, of course, because there are no electronic contacts between the FD lens and the adapter, and then between the adapter and the camera body. And here also you see how nice and soft this background is, and how sharp and clear and clean we see Stephanie's face here in the foreground. I think this is nice. Another nice shot, different pose on the car. Here I think I was a little bit stopping down. Look at her face, looks really sharp, and there is more in focus than in the images where I had the aperture wider open. And here the last one, which I also wanted to show, of course, beautiful. Beautiful face. And you see here I was definitely stopping down, because we have here much more information in the background, but still a separation of foreground and background. And I think I will very soon conclude the video now. I think I want to make a couple of points, but these sample images, I think what you get if you shoot these type of lenses on modern digital cameras, and if the glass is able to represent, sorry, that's what I should have said, to represent the resolution of 100 megapixel, it is so rewarding. And these images just have character. Character which I've hardly seen in the past. It reminds me a lot in the Leica Noctilux. It reminds me a lot in the absolutely fantastic Nikon Noct 0.95. And it has nevertheless its special character, what you get here from that lens if you shoot it wide open. Absolutely fabulous. All right, I hope you like these images. I think they look super nice, and it is always for me insightful to shoot older lenses. This lens here is from the 1970s on very modern camera bodies like the Hasselblad X2D II, and it's by far not the first time I'm doing it and showing it on my channel, as most of you will know. What I want to quickly mention before I conclude the video is that this is the lens cap I was using, and this is a 72mm filter thread lens cap, which of course is a modern lens cap and is not the original lens cap for the FD 85mm. Let me show you. It fits perfectly and it sits in a very nice way, so I can protect my glass, but it's not the original lens cap. And when I purchased the lens secondhand, of course, I got this lens cap here. This looks to me more original, but I'm not 100% sure. It also fits on the lens, but I think it comes off too easily, so I prefer this one with a snap-on mechanism in order to make sure my glass is protected. But this looks a bit more original to me, but I'm not 100% sure if this is really the original lens cap which is supposed to come with that lens. So if some of you have suggestions here, please let me know and drop me a comment if you have some knowledge about that. The second point I want to mention here is the lens is made in Japan. See this here. And we are all, including myself, obsessed by Leica lenses made in Germany. But Japan has very, very high manufacturing quality. That's why I always struggle when I show Sigma or Panasonic lenses on Leica cameras and people drop me a comment and say, yeah, but it's made by Sigma or it's made by Panasonic. It's not made by Leica in Germany. I strongly disagree with this point of view. And also here, you're invited to drop me a comment on your perspective. But the manufacturing quality in Japan is without any doubt. And you see it on that lens. This is a lens which could as easily be made in the Leica labs in Wetzlar, Germany on their campus. And the build quality of this lens in general is absolutely fabulous. I mentioned the very smooth focus ring, the aperture ring with the clicks, the metal finish of the lens body, and the S.S.C coating, which is also engraved in red letters on the lens body. So here, there is really nothing to complain. Image quality, in my opinion, it's an adventure to shoot these type of lenses on modern cameras. And astonishingly enough, the resolution capacity of older glass is always matching what the camera has in terms of resolution capabilities. And I've seen this so many times when I shoot, for instance, my Hasselblad CFV 100C on older Hasselblad medium format film roll cameras like the 503 CW. The glass built into older lenses typically, if these are good lenses, is fully capable to replicate the resolution of a 100 megapixel sensor. If you liked that video, don't forget to drop me your thumbs up. Stay tuned on my channel. There's always more to come. Thanks for watching. Stay safe and healthy. And of course, peace out.